Okay, well, thank you, Stacey, for joining me today. As COVID was ramping, we were speaking to our two girls about maybe documenting how they felt and what they were doing during this time. And we were having that conversation as a family, and I felt, hey, why don't I talk to some of the leaders that I respect who are not just observing but actually taking action right now, and do that not just for my own learning and to understand the context they're operating in, but also to see if we can be helpful to other people. So what I did was I reached out to some of my friends and people that I respect greatly, and I appreciate you agreeing to come on. So Stacey, can you just for our audience share a little bit about who you are, what you do?
Sure. I'm Stacey Cunningham, and I'm the president of the New York Stock Exchange. So I've been, living through the market movements as well as in New York City, how we've all been responding to the COVID-19 outbreak.
So it was probably about actually almost 2 years ago now that we went public on New York, the stock exchange, and it seems like a long time ago, Stacey. But
it does, although a couple of months ago feels like a long time ago.
It does. It does. It does. And one of the things that I really respected about you and your team was I had the sense of a lot of clarity and mission, and also people who take action. And what I'd love to do is to explore a little bit today on what's changed for you. And I think we'll talk about whether it's a purely professional dimension or social dimension or personal dimension, but understand what are some of the things that you're doing differently right now. This is a time of uncertainty. Share with us sort of what's top of mind as I ask that.
Well, I think one thing that's really important and what's been top of mind is sharing the story of the good part of what we're seeing right now. Obviously there's a lot of negative news to read out there, and there's a lot of scary things that we're reading about, and people are living with anxiety. One of the scariest things for someone to live through is when they're worried about their health. And it's also scary when you're worried about your economic stability and whether or not you can support your family. And so many people are living through both things at the same time, and we're all reacting and responding to what we're hearing in the news and watching. But there's a lot of good news out there too. There are a lot of people rising to the occasion. And so what I've been doing is focusing on telling those stories so people can see how communities are coming together to be part of a solution. And at the New York Stock Exchange, we have over 2,200 companies. So many of them are looking for ways to help right now, whether it's Johnson & Johnson working on a vaccine or Abbott Labs working on testing. I mean, there are countless lists, and Smartsheet is one of them. I mean, you've looked at how can you help customers, how can you help people get by? And so we started a campaign called #Gratitude, where we're thanking the frontline workers, the healthcare workers, those that are out front and center focusing on delivery and supply chain, as well as all of the companies that are taking extraordinary measures to help be part of the solution. So we've been chronicling all of that. So that's a pivot, for sure, from the day to day. And as we've all moved remote, you're also thinking about how do we motivate and keep people excited and focused on where we need to have our priorities, keeping our attention in the right place when you're no longer in the office. And that's certainly a shift for us. We're a company that was almost 95% in the office, and now we're over 95% remote.
So Stacey, when I reached out to you, I felt a little bit bad in saying, Stacey, can I get some time on a Zoom meeting? I mean, you're probably doing 12 of these today. So
no, it's great.
So beyond video communication, what else are you doing to stay connected with your team? Like, what type of messaging, how's your cadence changed with communicating with your group?
Yeah, the cadence has definitely increased. So we started over a month ago a daily communication email out to all employees, which we didn't typically send out a daily update, but we did because we knew there was so much information that was out there. There was so much new information that people were going to be reacting to, and during times of stress, you can't over communicate. There's just not there's no way to do that. So we've been sending out messages each day, and when we first implemented that daily email, we thought that it might be repetitive and that it would be helpful for employees to know there's no new information today, but still hear from us. And what we saw in the first few weeks, there was new information every single day. The circumstances were changing so dramatically and so rapidly that there wasn't a new information update. The cadence has certainly increased. And frankly, you realize when you're not traveling a lot and you're not spending a lot of time going between places for meetings, you actually have more time to communicate, which is a nice a nice unexpected change.
Mhm. So Stacey, as you share stories of, heroic efforts or positive news, how do you strike that balance between not being tone deaf either, right? Not being too rosy, because we also need to
Yeah.
be realists. So what are some tactics for how you balance that?
I think it always has to start with empathy. People are scared, and that's true. And I see that through two lenses, because people were also scared about market activity. And so one of the things that we were experiencing were markets were triggering circuit breakers where we halted trading for a few minutes because of the rapid market sell-off. And I had to balance that. Yes, it is concerning to see the market sell off, and it is concerning if you're looking at your 401k balance and you're seeing those declines. With the markets are operating the way they're supposed to operate, and they're functioning appropriately. And if people stay focused on the long term and take a step back, it's not as scary. And so the message is, this is good. The markets are working. The prices aren't great, but you don't have to sell right now. You can wait. And markets don't like uncertainty. As soon as we have more certainty around what's happening and how we're going to navigate ourselves through this period of time, we'll see the market recover. And frankly, we've already seen that. It's already seen that begin.
One of the things that I saw when you sent out the communication around moving to 100% electronic trading, that was big news. At least I interpret it as big news. And one of the things that I often try and do is distinguish between what is a problem and what is an inconvenience, even if it is massively inconvenient. Tell us a little bit about how you viewed that decision. Is it a problem, or is it a massive inconvenience?
I think it's probably a little bit of both. It's not a problem so much. It is very historic. It's the first time ever in our 227-year history that we've ever had the markets open and the trading floor closed. And so that is very, very significant. One of the reasons why we continue to have a trading floor is when you couple human judgment with technology and trading, you get a better result, and stocks trade with less volatility. So we're in this unprecedented volatile time. And the idea of taking away that tool that we have to help dampen volatility at that same time was a difficult decision. But it became clear that it was a safety concern, and that's certainly a differentiator. So we made the decision to close the trading floor. And keeping in mind, there are also small businesses on the trading floor as well. So people aren't able to come in and do their jobs when we made that decision. But we closed it temporarily just in order to reduce any additional strain on the healthcare system, keep people safe, keep our floor safe. So while that was, it's a wild inconvenience in many ways, another reason why we were concerned and delaying, focused on keeping the floor open as long as possible was because of the symbolic nature of the trading floor and the fact that it is viewed by so many as a sign of strength of our economy. And so that was certainly in the back of our mind as well. But in the long term, we'll go back to having the trading floor and go back to providing full service. I just, when you said, Mark, sort of putting those things into perspective, I find that with crisis comes clarity. Mm-hmm. And that's true for a personal crisis versus anything else. When you think about your own home life and things that you might fight with people you live with over suddenly become unimportant if you're dealing with a personal tragedy. And that's what we're going through here too. All of the little things that are day-to-day inconveniences, or a lot of the drama you might have in offices, get set to the side when people are rising on focusing on what's really important and coming together. And so I think there is value in that clarity you get in a critical moment. And we shouldn't let that go to waste. We should think about what is really important and how do we focus on protecting the things that are really important and set aside the things that sometimes might just be distractions.
Yeah. So Stacey, I was speaking with an analyst recently, and they were asking me how we were faring and how we were setting guidance. And they also recognized that, hey, no one's been through a global pandemic before. And when you think about the what New York has dealt with over the years, whether it is Mother Nature, whether it is a crisis like 9/11, how do you think those past experiences shape how people are reacting today? And what do we take from it?
Every time we go through a crisis, we learn from those events and we apply them to build up resiliency for future events. We do that after the fact. So we run through a post-mortem. And I would say the financial markets industry in particular does a great job of coming together setting aside any competitive differentiation that we have and really focusing on how do we learn from this and make the industry even stronger. And so we've done that with 9/11. We've done that through natural disasters, which is why it was very easy for the industry to move to work from home and to move to fully electronic, because we've learned from prior events, even though they're not the same. And you can't ever predict what the next crisis is going to look like. But after you get through it, you learn as a technology company that when there is an issue going on, you need to focus on solving that problem right at that during that moment. And you can focus on during the postmortem, you can determine what did we learn from this and what caused it. But you usually set that aside until you get through the solution. And once we do that, we definitely come out stronger. And so we have done that. In fact, I look at our technology teams and I look at the most significant growth spurts through this company over the past several years. They came from times of crisis. And that's really when we redefined ourselves and looked at where can we learn from this and how can we become much stronger. And our technology systems had to process 300 billion messages in a given day. We wouldn't have been able to do that if we hadn't learned from prior events that we need to be able to scale at multiples, because that's 3 times what we would see on a normal day. And that's what we saw in the beginning of last month.
Yeah. And I think when people often try to figure out what the state of the state is, they ask questions around, is it a headwind or is it a tailwind? How soon will we be through this? Like, there are differing opinions on all of these fronts. What you can't argue, though, that this is one heck of a forcing function. We have to respond. Yeah. And when you're in that situation of forced learning, those dividends are going to be, we're going to receive those dividends for many years to come, even though it is extraordinarily painful right now for many. When you think about the how people will respond from this, and you think about how quickly people will recover, how quickly they will get back to the new normal. What's your take? Is this, people talk about V shape, U shape, L. What's your take? How resilient are we?
I think it's not the same for everybody, and people are individuals, and everyone's going to have their own individual response to how comfortable they are to coming back to work. But I think that that's a significant component. There is an emotional component to this recovery, because it won't just be, does the government reopen cities and are people allowed to go back to work, they allowed to get back on airplanes? It's also going to include whether or not they're comfortable going back to work and comfortable getting on airplanes. And so I don't think that answer is going to be the same for everybody. Different people will feel differently about that. The more tools we have to give that comfort level around testing and around the vaccines and medications, that's going to, for a lot of people, be very important to be able to have those tools and have that visibility. And that's what I'm looking for when I think about what's our plan for getting closer to business as usual. Those tools are going to be a big part of it.
Mm-hmm. Stacey, give me one thing outside of your direct responsibility, one thing that you're optimistic about.
I am inspired by all of the different people coming together. It is so inspirational, not just within our own company, but the CEOs that are leading companies and their organizations, the healthcare workers, the grocery store clerks, the government. And I have had a lot of conversations with various government officials at the city, state, federal level, across the board. And they have all been so constructive. They've all been focused on solutions. You see, regardless of what you might read about, what you're seeing live is people setting their politics aside and focusing on solutions. Senator Schumer saying wonderful things about Secretary Mnuchin as they worked on the stimulus plan. Those are the types of things where people are rising to focus on solutions. I'm inspired by that. That's how I know we're going to get through this, because all of the people that need to play a role are focused on playing those roles.
Well, Stacey, thank you for being a pace setter for so many. You have an exchange to run. You have 2,200 public companies to look after, and you have a large team to mobilize. I think hearing from people like you is so valuable. It motivates us. It gives us hope. And I think at a time like this, hope plays such an important role. We are in a tough spot, all of us together. And we need to be able to also look forward and say, you know what, we will get through this together. And it's hopefully we come out much better, right? As an organization, as a society.
I completely agree, Mark. This, for most of us, this will be the worst thing we've lived through. And it's an opportunity for us to be the best versions of ourselves and to really help be part of a solution. And I am inspired because I am seeing that happen, and people are really rising to the challenge. So we will get through it. I know without a doubt.
Okay, Stacey. Well, stay healthy. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Mark. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.